And with me today, I have a lovely Stephanie Hutchins, who is a returning guest. She also joined me in season one to talk about her book at the time. And now she's been writing so many more books. And I invited her on to speak more about this work that she's currently doing on these amazing books. So she is the author of See Through, The Art and Cost of Radical Transparency in a World That Profits from Pretending, as well as Transformation After Trauma, Reclaim Your Life After Trauma and Moving Forward. As a former college professor turned trauma recovery coach, she now guides others to finding their voice and rewriting their story. As a founder of Serotinous Life, she helps people harness the power of post-traumatic growth to build lives rooted in truth, healing, and purpose. Stephanie also challenges the performance of I'm fine and instead advocates for authenticity, integration, and radical transparency as pathways to true healing. Her story and insights help others move from surviving for approval to reclaiming authorship of their own lives. Welcome to the show again, Stephanie. Such an honor to have
Oh,
you here.
thanks, Anu. I'm really happy to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity because you're like a glowing light, and I love being around you.
Oh, thank you. The feeling's mutual. And as I was saying, before we started recording that, I'm just so fascinated by, your creativity and just your ideas that you have for all this amazing material that you're producing. So tell us more about this journey.
Oh, so it's funny because I feel I've reflected a lot on why I have so many books like already have come out so quickly and I have so many more in the pipeline. And I'm like, I wonder if it has to do from all the years when I was young that I feel like I was silenced and I feel like my voice wasn't welcomed. And I was always trying to find ways to let it out. So like when I was young, I mean, in our previous episode we talked about I experienced a lot of abuse when I was young. And but in my teenage years, I was trying to figure out a way to get it out, and I did that through poetry, and then eventually it turned into painting, and then I did mountain climbing and traveling, and now when I found my voice through writing, I was like, oh man, this is it.
Wow.
This is it. Because I can take Google Keep and do voice to text, and I can just run with it. I can just put a whole bunch of thoughts that I have, and I end up with just my notes in Google Keep. I end up with like hundreds of pages of content because I just have it and I have this way to just get out thoughts when they're there. And then I just start putting them together. I was like, oh, if I merge these together, I can put this one into this book and in this book. And so that's why I have these four and then my next five in the pipeline. So
Wow, I love that, and I cannot wait for these all to be published.
thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you. So,
Mhm.
what drew you to radical transparency as a core of your memoir?
Yeah, so the newest book, the official release date is January 6th, and that book is See-Through. Pre-sales will come up soon, but this one, I actually was supposed to write another book first, and I actually switched and put See-Through next because I had some experiences recently. So I just started full-time travel. I just over these past, well, it's been 9 months now, I've just been completely transforming my life and pursuing a life I envisioned 7 years ago. I developed it and have finally started living it. So I got rid of my full-time job at the end of December. I had still a part-time job. I got rid of that finished that on May 2nd of this year. And
Wow.
then mid-May, I started traveling. So I spent the past 4 months traveling in different countries, mainly around Asia,
Mm,
and finished stepping foot on the last of my 50 states in the US.
wow.
And now I go back out again. for 7 months. But what has happened is during that time of travel, where everything could just, I had less focus on other people, I could just focus on myself. And I was volunteering, and I was seeing how old patterns of mine were coming up. Like, for example, I was volunteering at a school,
Mm,
and it was in Vietnam. And overall, the experiences were wonderful. But I saw a lot of times where this desire to say something and this battle between wanting to say something but wanting to also recoil back and stay hidden. I was in this constant battle. And finally, there were just circumstances at school that just made me speak up, and a lot came up, and that was just in June. It was just in June. And I had been developing this book on radical authenticity, and I was like, this is it. Like, this battle between being seen and wanting to go back and be hidden, and this like back and forth. And I kept seeing it over and over. I kept choosing to be seen even when it was uncomfortable, to speak even when I knew it would bring judgment. And I was like, that's it. Because with all my clients and students, they, I see over the years that they experience so much suffering because of the ways they pretend.
mm,
You know, when they say they're fine when they're not, when they say yes to an obligation that they never wanted to do, when they see harm or potential harm and don't speak up because that means they're going to be a target. And it's just I see this over and over again. And I was like, no, this is the message right now that I want to share. And so yeah, so it's really so this few months I switched. The other book was almost done, and I was like, no, no, radical transparency has to come before.
beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much. And so you write about the cost of being visible after trauma. So what does that cost look like, and why do you believe it's worth paying?
Yeah, so the cost comes in a lot of ways, and one is in just, when we experience so much suffering, we have all of this range of emotions that we face, and a lot of it we don't understand. And so for a long time, I tried to hide those with a smile.
Mm,
And that was my greatest defense. Hiding with a smile, hiding with achievement, just pretending that I wasn't in the pain that I was in. But one cost was that I was destroying myself. I
mm,
was I was being eaten apart because I kept pretending that I wasn't feeling the way I was. And so it was like a form of slow death. But so over these years, I have practiced speaking up when it's uncomfortable because I have seen this slow death that I've been experiencing. But that speaking up comes with a different cost. So there's a cost of staying silent, but there's a cost of speaking up, in that not everybody wants a strong woman.
yeah.
Not everybody wants, the unspoken things to come to light. And so then you have the cost of criticism and judgment and people not wanting to be affiliated with you. Um, and it's a cost in relationships where we used to say yes to everything, and now we start saying no. So now the cost of people not being happy with you because they don't have that version of you that they had before. And so again and again, I've had to choose which price do I want to pay, because there's always a price.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay a price if I stay silent and I keep saying yes to everybody but me. Um, and there's going to be a cost, when I start setting boundaries and I start speaking up when others won't. And so it's just that deciding over and over again which price I'm willing to pay. Mm.
Interesting. Thank you. And so you touched on the I'm fine performance. And many survivors live in this, right? When they're
Right.
asked, "How are you doing?" "Yeah, I'm fine." But so what actually helped you shift into authenticity, and why is this an issue for people?
Yeah. So I think part of the issue is the reality is most people don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear the story. They want the simple
Mm,
part. They want because it's too much for a lot of people, especially, for trauma survivors, we have not the weight, just the weight of our trauma, but how it's lived in us and how it's affected us and all the emotions that come with it. And for a lot of people, that's too heavy. And so they want us to make it easier, make it palatable for them. And so I think that's, in my opinion, that's how it starts, is that the ways that the world starts to show us that our story is too much for them, that we're too much for them. And so we start to come in and say, and so you know, I'm sitting here thinking about, because my trauma started young, is if it started older, I'm not sure if it would have changed, but I know as a child, I learned quickly that I had to be able to be what the other person wanted me to be. And if the other person wasn't ready to hear too much, then I had to shrink my story and myself to match what they were capable of. And so that is what I learned early on. So maybe as a grown person, if I experienced trauma, maybe it'd be different. But from my view, people want to hear I'm fine and nothing more. And so what I have learned over the years, though, is as I've spent time in self-reflection, I've seen that cost of even telling friends
mm,
I'm fine. When they ask me, Stephanie, how are you doing? How have you been? And I say, I'm fine. But I could feel it in my body. I've started to become more aware of how what I say and do affects my body. And I could start seeing that saying fine, I'm fine when I'm actually breaking apart, when I'm exhausted, when I'm just depleted in all forms, physically, emotionally, mentally, that it breaks the part of me that when I said I'm fine and I'm not, I could feel it in my chest, I could feel it in my back, I could feel it in my jaw. And I started to realize this isn't good for me to say I'm fine when I'm not. And so that's part of how the speaking out loud, like into Google Keep, came about, because before I was ready to say to the world, like even close friends, what I was really feeling, I had to practice saying it to myself. Because before I wouldn't even acknowledge that I'm not fine.
right.
And so before I could stop telling the world I'm fine when I'm not, I had to start telling myself that I'm not fine. So
Yeah.
so it became that I'd speak it out loud into Google Keep, and I'd take those notes. And as I started speaking it, I started to realize, oh, that felt better. I could feel the shift in my body. And so I started practicing saying with people who I felt safe with that I'm actually not fine. And I started to see how they responded. And I saw that certain people could handle me saying I'm not fine and hold space for that. And then I could see, but not everyone could.
Yeah.
So it became about discernment, that I could see who could hold that space for I'm not fine and who couldn't. And so I became to see that it wasn't that I could never be authentic. It was that I had to discern between who was safe to share my story with and who was not. And then
Mhm.
it all just became easier over time.
Interesting. And I suppose you then realized that your network had reduced drastically as well.
Substantially. I have I have I have a lot of people in my a wide circle because I travel the world and I meet people all over and I'm very chatty. So I meet people, but if you look at my circle, you would think that it's huge as far as connections. And it is the people in my phone, the people on social media, but in my circle, the people that I will actually share who I really am with, that's a
Wow.
tight circle, you know, and it's taken years of crafting
Yeah.
and years of filtering, and I think the filtering is still happening today.
Mm,
Um, but it's very small, um, because there are people have their own stuff, and sometimes they don't want to hear our stuff because they can barely handle theirs. So
yeah.
if they're barely surviving, how can they handle our stuff? And so I've stopped feeling maybe as angry and resentful towards my circle shrinking, because before I would get upset at people who couldn't hold space for
Okay.
me,
Mm,
who couldn't be part of my circle that would be able to hold my story so I could be honest.
mm,
But now I realize like they're just not just where it's just not where they're at. That my circle has to be small and has to eliminate some people just because they're not able to be there for me in the way I need. Um, it doesn't mean they're a bad person. It's just they're in a different space right
yeah.
now. Yeah. So that constant discernment.
No, that's beautiful. And yeah, I know so many people who can really relate to that, especially as you grow and heal, you just outgrow people. And yeah, it becomes quite isolating as well at times when, you just can't
Yeah.
find people who really understand you or,
Yeah.
can relate to you. So I think that's a very common thing when it comes to healing and post-traumatic growth. But
Yeah.
yeah, I also wanted to ask about how you would define high functioning trauma.
Because that has been I guess, a big part of the resistance I faced
Mm,
in my healing and on this journey of radical authenticity is that a lot of people are really, when they first learn about my trauma history, they're shocked,
mm,
especially previously when I wasn't so open about things. They are shocked that I have endured what I've endured, and that a lot of times I was experiencing suffering and people didn't even know it. So, like so when I was 25, my partner, I had found him dead, and I started a new job right before, and people had no idea I just lost my partner. They had
wow.
no idea because I had gotten so good at going into any environment engaging who I needed to be.
Mm,
And I got good at wearing a mask. I had like this whole setup where I could just put on a smile in
mm,
an instant and armor up and just block everything off from my past and what I was experiencing and just perform
yeah.
for the world what they needed. And so I started to learn that people, again, loved my smile. They loved my energy. They loved the accomplishments and the adventuring. And so I started only to show that part of myself to the world, the achieving, happy, bubbly version. And I accomplished a lot during it. When I just let everything else fade away, it was almost like it gave me a reprieve from
Yeah.
my past, because while I was pretending to the rest of the world, I could also pretend for myself that it didn't happen for just a little while. And so I just kept going. And so not only did the rest of the world start to not recognize that I had experienced so much suffering, but I started to buy into the belief that I could eventually outrun my pain, that if I just kept accomplishing just enough, that that maybe my past wouldn't matter anymore. That maybe I'd never have to stand still long enough to face it.
Mm.
And eventually I realized that was a lot of crap. Sorry if I'm not supposed to say that, but it was just
Yeah, I
like
get it.
I couldn't
Yeah.
outrun it. Yeah,
Yeah, then like you get your flashbacks and memories keep coming up and you just
absolutely.
reminders and oh. It haunts you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it does.
So, what do you think are some common ways that trauma hides behind perfectionism, overachievement, and overfunctioning?
Yeah, so I know for me, perfectionism was also a shield I used. So part of my trauma, so from little, just 3, 4 years old, I can remember being told that I was nothing and that I was never going to be anything. And I was always, you know, I was always told constantly that nothing I did was good enough. And so it started little that I needed to learn how to be perfect, that I created this idea in my mind that if I could just do everything right, that I would never be criticized. And eventually I would be told, yes, you are good enough. Yes, you matter. Um, but eventually that became a trap in and of itself because the reality is we can never be perfect. And so the more I strived, because I just went crazy with it, I was like, I'm not just going to be perfect with, you know, how I show up. I'm going to be perfect in how I do at school. I'm going to be perfect in how I look. I'm going to be perfect with this. And so it meant that I ended up in my mind proved to be failing all of the time.
Wow.
So it became like I was aiming to feel like I was worthy, but then with perfectionism, drove myself into a trap that I always felt like I was failing. And so what ended up happening, that's part of why I've achieved so much. So it's this double-edged sword. You know, the perfectionism drove me into this trap where I was always like, I want to do better. I want to be better. I want to accomplish more. And so I did. And when that wasn't enough, I kept aiming for higher and then higher. So it's like I've accumulated a lot of accomplishments, which is great, but it came with a huge cost
Yeah.
because for most of these years, I would move from one accomplishment to another and still feel so dissatisfied. I would still feel so empty. I wouldn't celebrate. I would just be like, okay, I feel the accomplishment. Do I feel enough? No, I still don't feel like enough. I've got to keep going. And so over these years, I've been working on slowing down and uh, celebrating one,
Mhm.
um, and and really embracing what I'm feeling. Whether it's that in that moment I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed, but also moments of happiness and joy, because I had convinced myself that I would never feel happy unless I was accepted by people. Like I felt like I was enough. And so I've started really examining that I can feel happy and I can feel joy and contentment and peace even when I'm not accomplishing, even when I'm messy. So that's where the discernment and the selecting certain people in my life has come because I learned um, that it's not just about the accolades, it's about the people I have around me and and them being allowed them being willing to sit with me and me being able to sit with me. Um, and so it's been an interesting cycle that's happened of me going through all these a series of accomplishments and perfection to now going back almost. And it's almost like I'm re-experiencing, it seems silly to say, but I'm 43 years old and I feel like I'm experiencing childhood in the way I should have
Mhm.
now. Like, what is it like to be around people that know that you're just human and you're going to be messy and they don't judge you? And what is it like to be when you you don't have everything else disappears. And so I've started one of my travels meeting people and not telling them about my accomplishments and seeing that they still enjoy being around me even though they don't know
Yeah.
who I all these things and that seeing that I don't need to be perfect, and I don't need to be this high accomplishing person in order to be accepted by others or even myself. Um,
Wow, that, thank you. I was going to ask, you may have answered some of this already, but what tools or practices have actually helped you to move from survival mode into genuine healing?
and I think it's the sitting with the discomfort of my story and not running from it.
Mhm.
Being willing to say, I'm not okay. Like that whole, like, not only we need to stop, in my opinion, stop telling the world that we're fine when we're not, but we need to, again, stop saying it to ourselves.
Mm.
And I think that accepting and understanding and facing when I'm not fine has been really important for me, and to not keep barreling through, to actually take this time and space to sit and say, what do I need? Because before I would just run. I would work and I would hike and I would do this and I would do that, do anything but to sit with my discomfort.
Yeah.
And now I sit, and that has been really important. But then, and again, I keep bringing up other people because I've collected some extremely special people in my life. And when for the most part, I'm okay being by myself when I'm in discomfort these days. But sometimes there's so much coming up that I need to reach out. And I have this collection of people where I can reach out and say, listen, this is what's coming up and I need help, thinking through this. And they'll make space for
Yeah.
me. And these things have been extremely critical, for me to transition, um, and to slow down and to start moving out of that high functioning trauma and out of the perfectionism and just be okay with just being, you know, being human and
Be-
not having to be perfect all the time.
And has traveling really helped you to just be?
Yeah, I think part of like that piece that I was just saying of having people like seeing that people are okay with me, actually not just okay, that they like me as I am and they appreciate me as I am without knowing everything about me. That has been wonderful for me to see. But it's also been important for me to see that travel isn't an escape.
Yeah.
Like I used to use traveling as part of my running, just go from one dopamine, push to another, this one big extreme adventure to another, and then realizing that everywhere in the world, I'm still going to face times when I'm down, face triggers from my past, and I need to sit with it. And I think that has been very important for me to see, particularly over these past 4 months, is I have had some tremendous experiences, and still I have moments where I need to sit with something from my past or present. And so it's not like it's ever going to disappear, and I have to really work on integrating, my past into my present, regardless of where I am. Um,
Well, thank you. Thank you. And so boundaries can be difficult for survivors. How did you actually learn to set boundaries without an apology?
Yeah, well, that's taken some practice and it's still in the works because not everybody likes us to set boundaries. So, 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 so I was like, this is going to be a work in progress for a while. Um, so I think it's just a practice, you
Mm,
know, um, that I started with first learning to say to myself that it's okay. I first needed to determine myself that it's okay to set boundaries.
mm,
Like I'm in a family of women who say yes to everything. And I'm sorry, ladies, if you're listening, we all know that we do it. We know it's a thing. And so I was trained from early that even when you don't have time, you don't have energy, you don't have mental capacity, you say yes, no matter what, because keeping the peace is most important above all. And so I had to train my brain that that is not true.
Mm.
Like that was the first thing that I had to know, that it is okay to say no when I don't have the capacity,
Yeah.
mentally, physically, whatever. It's okay. So I had to come to terms with that. And then I had to start practicing. I had to start, and in the beginning, I'd say no, and then I waver and I cave, and I still ended up doing the thing. And then, but eventually I started, as I practiced, I got better at it. I learned that instead of saying yes or no, I'd take time before I'd give a final response. So I learned like, okay, what is it that I need to do to be able to honor my boundaries? And sometimes that was allowing myself to have space. So I'd say, let me think about it. I appreciate you asking me. Let me think about it and I'll get back to you. And sometimes that gave me the space I needed to be able to say, no, I don't have time or energy. And then I could say no. And now I've eventually gotten into saying no, um, a little quicker. So but again, it's not perfect, but it's been a progression.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah, that's it. Progress is, it's just, I guess it's starting off doing it and not feeling bad about it because
Right.
it's so important to respect our own, self-care. And by actually saying no, you're doing that. You're basically listening to yourself and
Yeah.
not kind of falling into a people-pleasing scenario.
Right, right. And I think that that's part of the filtering of people in my life, is that I'm learning that sometimes I need to say no to, it's not just no to obligations, but no to having certain people in
Mm.
my space.
Yeah.
That learning that some people are just not good for me. And it doesn't mean they're bad people. It means that they're not good for me. They're not good for my nervous system. They're not good for my healing, and being able to say no to even having people in your life. That's been a really big one for me, of being very mindful of who I say yes to, no to, and keeping in my space.
Beautiful. Thank you. So many listeners feel like they're not enough or they might feel like they're too much. What
Mm.
encouragement can you offer them?
Oh, so this is something I've struggled with a lot, that I sort of, this jumping between feeling like I'm extreme, like I have very high energy, or I'm too emotional, or I'm too this, but also feeling like I'm inadequate, so
Mm,
I'm not enough. And I think, so what I've found is, I take inventory of things. And so, like, for example, I've taken time over and over, this is not a one and done thing, regarding the too much. Like, is it really that I'm too much? Or is it that the people I'm around can't handle
mm,
who I am? And that has been a very important thing for me, to see that, is it really about me, or is it around the people and systems
mm,
I'm in? And in seeing that maybe I just need to be around different people and systems. So like for me, this too much, like I'm a heck of a worker. I excel, like, and I like to do a good job at everything, but I also like to stand up for injustice. I don't like to see things that are wrong, even if it means I'm going to have to put in extra time and energy to do the right thing. I will do it, but not everybody feels that way in organizations. So that has meant me having my own business versus being an employee. Like I realized that certain systems can't hold who I am. And so this too much thing, I realized, no, this is who I am. And instead of shaming that piece, how can I build a life that embraces those parts of me that an organization can't?
yeah.
And so, and then the not enough piece, it's like, how can I also take inventory of, is that actually true? Or am I just repeating stories from my past? So then I take inventory. No, where is that coming from? If I'm saying my body isn't enough, or my accomplishments are enough, or this, is that true? Where's that coming from? And that really determining where did that story come from has been really important in trying to break apart that too much, not enough, those patterns. And it's not perfect. I still have to do it all
Mm,
the time. Um, yeah, and so for the listeners, I think it's really sitting with those pieces of yourself, and instead of shaming yourself, because that might be the instinct that's mine, is saying, like, does it really deserve to be shamed?
mm,
Does that part really deserve to be shamed? Or is that just a narrative that somebody else gave us? Maybe it's not true. And so taking that time, and I think that's what my time in reflection has given me, is seeing that the stories that other people have tried to sell me are just not true,
mm,
you know, and once I saw that most of what people say is in furtherance of their own goals, their own self, and their own desires and what they want in life, and not have anything to do with me, it was easier for me to start seeing, okay, somebody gave me that story because it was more convenient for them, made life easier for them, but it doesn't mean it's true about me. So,
exactly. Beautiful. Thank you. So, where can my listeners follow you on your journey and find out more about you?
yeah, so you could go and learn about my new book. It's at serotoninuslife.com/see-through. And I'm also on all the major social media platforms at Serotinous Life. And I'm hoping anew that you'll put Serotinous Life in the show notes so people know how to spell it.
Sure. Yeah, no, definitely. And actually, yeah, if I actually don't know the episode number, but yeah, your previous episode is still up there as well. So I
hmm
guess it'll just be a matter of searching So What in This Life, and people can actually listen to your season one episode as well that you did with me.
Yeah, yeah. I
That'd
was
be
like, I
cool.
think I might have been after my first book, Transformation After Trauma, might be in the title, but it's all right.
Definitely.
It's out there. It's out
Out
there.
there. Lovely. Thank you so much. So, what last message of hope would you like to leave with my listeners today?
So I think it's really important to know that your scars don't define you, and that you're not more or less because of your scars, even if people try to tell you that. And that one really important part of healing for me has been integrating my story and my scars into my current life, and seeing that I don't have to run away from my past, and neither do you. That regardless of what you've experienced and what you've done to cope in the aftermath, because that brings up a lot of shame sometimes, what we do to cope, that to see that it was all part of how you survived, and that everything you've done to this point, good or bad, has helped you survive just a little bit longer. And so seeing that even those parts of our past we wish weren't there, they are part of our story. So instead of trying to erase those parts and essentially erase ourselves in the process, um, is integrate them, and to see that we're whole and we're not broken because of what's been done to us, and what we've done to survive in the aftermath. So,
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
mhm.
Again, such a pleasure having you on again and sharing your beautiful wisdom with my listeners. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thanks, Anu. I really appreciate the opportunity to be back.
Amazing. So that's all we have time for today, my beautiful people. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please do reach out if you have any questions for Stephanie about what was discussed today. I am sure she would love to hear from you. And until the next episode, stay blessed, my friends. I'll see you next time.